In a village tucked between rolling hills, there lived two brothers, Marco and Leo. They inherited their father's land, split perfectly down the middle. Marco, the elder, believed in one thing: hard work conquers all. Leo? Well, the village called him lazy. Every morning before sunrise, Marco was already in his fields. He tilled the soil with fierce determination, pulling weeds by hand, watering each plant individually. His hands were calloused, his back perpetually bent. Success comes to those who work hardest, he'd tell anyone who'd listen. Meanwhile, Leo would wake at a reasonable hour, stretch lazily in the sunlight, and spend his mornings sitting under a tree, watching his fields. The villagers shook their heads. "Poor Leo," they'd whisper. "He'll starve while Marco thrives." But here's what they didn't see. While Marco exhausted himself watering plants one by one, Leo spent weeks designing an irrigation system using bamboo pipes and gravity. While Marco manually pulled weeds until his fingers bled, Leo planted companion flowers that naturally repelled pests. While Marco carried heavy bags of produce to market on his back each day, Leo built a simple cart with wheels. Marco worked 16-hour days. Leo worked 4. Years passed. Marco's devotion never wavered. He wore his exhaustion like a badge of honor, sleeping only 4 hours a night, eating meals standing in his field. Yet his profits barely increased. He was always too tired to learn new techniques, too busy to attend the agricultural meetings in town, too proud to ask why his methods weren't working better. Leo, however, had time to think. He noticed which crops sold for higher prices. He observed weather patterns and planned accordingly. He built relationships with merchants who paid premium rates for quality produce. He even took a few weeks off each year to visit other farms, learning innovative techniques. One harvest season, a merchant visited both brothers. Marco proudly showed his fields, rows upon rows of crops, each tended with back-breaking effort. "I work harder than anyone," he declared, chest puffed with pride. The merchant nodded politely, but placed a modest order. Then he visited Leo's land. The fields were smaller, but the crops were healthier, more diverse, and precisely what the market demanded. Leo had time to research which varieties were rare and valuable. "I'll take your entire harvest," the merchant said, "at double the usual price." Marco couldn't understand it. How could his lazy brother succeed when he worked so much harder? That evening, Leo finally shared his secret. "Brother," he said gently, "I'm not lazy, I'm efficient. You're not a hard worker, you're a busy worker. There's a difference." Marco's face flushed with anger, but Leo continued. "You confuse motion with progress. You think hours worked equals value created, but the world doesn't pay for effort, it pays for results. You could work 24 hours a day, but if you're digging in the wrong place, you'll never strike water." He gestured toward Marco's fields. "You're so busy working, you never stop to think whether you're working smart. I spend my time figuring out systems that work while I rest. You spend your time doing everything yourself, trapped in an endless cycle." Marco sat down heavily, the truth settling on his shoulders like the weight of all those wasted years. The richest farmers aren't the ones who work hardest, they're the ones who design systems, who think strategically, who work on their farm rather than just in it. They use their brains to save their backs. Over the following months, Marco began to change. He felt guilty at first, taking breaks to plan instead of plowing, but slowly he built his own irrigation system. He learned which crops were most profitable. He created processes that didn't require constant manual labor. His income didn't just increase, it multiplied. Within 2 years, both brothers were prosperous. But now they had something more valuable than money: time. Time to rest, to think, to enjoy the fruits of their intelligence rather than just their sweat. The wisdom. Here's what most people never realize. The economy doesn't reward effort, it rewards value creation. You can work yourself to death and still stay poor if you're creating the wrong value in the wrong way. The hardest workers often stay poor because they're trapped in a cycle. They work too hard to stop and learn, too busy to improve their methods, too exhausted to think strategically. They mistake activity for achievement. Real wealth comes from leverage, building systems, gaining knowledge, working smarter. It comes from having the wisdom to step back and ask, is there a better way? Being lazy doesn't mean avoiding work. It means being smart enough to question whether the work you're doing is actually moving you forward. It means having the courage to stop, think, and redirect your energy toward what truly matters. The next time you feel guilty for taking a break, for learning instead of doing, for thinking instead of grinding, remember the two brothers. Remember that strategic rest is not laziness, it's wisdom. Your worth isn't measured by how tired you are at the end of the day. It's measured by the value you create, the systems you build, and the life you design. Work smart, live well. That's the real power of intelligent laziness.